A friend sent me an article from Christianity Today with the title, Study, U.S. Churches Exclude Children with Autism, ADD, ADHD. In other news, water's wet. That was my first response reading the title. And I read the article and, it was kind of citing all of the reasons that families often, don't participate in their faith communities. Even though there's the research there that says being part of your church community and being supported by your church community leads to better emotional health, better mental health, better support, and better well-being for the whole family unit. Still, the research is glaring that doesn't happen often. And I was reading through this article. There's one part that really stood out to me because it's something that I had experienced before. The reasons for not attending can be complex, but prior research indicates barriers put up by the congregation are a major deterrent. They range from lack of training and programming to attitudinal barriers that can include patronizing voices asking if such children really get anything out of participating, noted Whitehead. This is the researcher who wrote the original research paper that this article is reporting on. The article continues, family members themselves can become victims as church members with words or hostile looks communicate messages such as, why can't the parent just control the kid? It can just wear on you, Whitehead said. And this is a gentleman who also has children with disabilities. And yeah, I can tell you, having someone say something like that to you, it leaves a mark, and it's kind of shocking to hear that from someone that you've come to for help and support, particularly when your faith tradition says that we are all created in the image of God and our value is inherent, and we are all loved by God, and we are creatures that are created for intimate relationship with God. When you're coming out of that faith tradition and the people who share that tradition with you are the ones making it hard for you and your family to participate in the faith tradition. And I read some of the responses to this, and there seems to be a consensus in some sectors of the faith community, the Christian community, at least in America, that parents expect too much for their minor and adult children in terms of participation and support in a church community. And that's kind of perplexing that people would have that kind of attitude, that parents expect too much from their church family, that they expect too much support or accommodation in a faith tradition that, has incorporated into it the idea that we are all there to love one another, in a faith tradition that is built upon God loving us unconditionally with no strings attached, providing for our needs, caring for us even when we didn't want it. So the concept that parents are expecting too much or demanding too much in order to have their families be part of their church community is a low perspective. The Bible says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus repeatedly referred to it in the New Testament as the Great Commandment. Are you willing to love God by loving your neighbor as yourself? Those neighbors who have disabilities that make them stand out. The neighbors who, they don't always respond when you say hello. Their behaviors kind of make them stand out, and they're a little bit noisy, or they're uncomfortable, or sometimes they throw things, or they're not always quiet when it's time to be quiet. Are you willing to love God by loving them and including them and supporting them? Are you willing to take all of your being and put it into loving God by loving and supporting them, by recognizing their humanity, by recognizing their worth, by valuing them because they were created by God, because they bear the image of their Creator? Are you willing to do what it takes to welcome families in and support them? Are you focused on how hard it is, or how difficult it is, or what you don't know? There are solutions to that. So, how are you going to do that with respect to your neighbors who have disabilities? How are you going to love them as yourself, as part of your church community? Yep, it requires planning, and it requires a willingness to want them and a willingness to have them be part of the church community. It's the job of church leadership as well to build that into how your church operates. And it has to come from the leadership and from the membership as well. Otherwise, folks are going to keep not showing up. And folks are going to walk in the door and they're going to be like, what? I have to fight for my child here too? Or I have to fight for myself here too? And folks who desperately need a break, who desperately need support, they're going to be like, you know what? I don't want to have to roll the rock uphill here same way I do everywhere else. Families who want to be part of their church communities are actually presuming too much, or wanting too much, or expecting too much. What they want is the same thing that anyone else wants out of their church community. They want to be part of it, and they want their children to be a part of it, and we are not we're not getting there. We're not getting the support that we need to be part of it. And there are also people who kind of struggle with the idea of, well, we don't know how, and we don't have the training, and we don't have enough people, and there's well, gosh, think about solutions. Okay, you don't know how, but you can find out how, right? You can find out from other places who have figured out how to do it. You can find out from support groups. You can find out from experts. You don't have to be an expert. The parents who are taking care of their children weren't experts on day one. They're figuring it out, oftentimes on their own without support. So you can't leave them hanging. Don't shut families out from a place that has the kind of support that they are desperately in need of. Thanks for listening.